Welcome! We're going to take a look at dividing polynomials. Polynomials? What does polynomial? Mills, I guess. Okay, side note, sometimes you get on a tangent here where you need to go ahead and divide 85 by 4. Now, if we use longhand division, you guys have done that before. You have to say, okay, 4 times what is 8? You say 2, you put a 2 up here. You go 2 times 4 is 8, put that right there, and then you go 8 minus 8, and you get 0. Now, you bring down the next term, and you repeat the process. You go 4 times what is 5? Well, nothing, but if I go 4 times 1, I'm close. So the 1 times the 4 gives me 4. I go ahead and I subtract, and I get 1. Now, your answer here is your quotient of 21 plus our remainder of the 1 over our divisor, which is the 4. So our answer is 21 and 1/4, or 21 plus 1/4. Now, that same approach works even when we're dealing with polynomials. You need to ask yourself, okay, my x right here times what gives me an x squared? Now let's see, an x times an x will give me an x squared, so I got to put an x up here. Now I got to take this x times everything in front. My x times my x. My x times my -5. Then, when we were dealing with these numbers back here, we said we want to subtract. Well, sometimes when we're dealing with polynomials, people get messed up with the subtracting. So instead of subtracting, we add the opposite, because instead of subtracting 5, if we add a -5, it's the same thing. So I'm going to change my signs, and then all I'm going to do is add. Now, if we're doing it correctly, this first term here should always drop out. And an x squared plus a -x squared, yeah, that cancels out. So now we have a -2x and a 5x. We add those together and we get 3x. And then all we have to do is bring down the next term. Once again, just like back here, once we got to here, we repeated the process. Oh, once we get to here, we got to repeat the process. We got to go an x times what is my 3x? Well, x times a 3. So now I got to take my 3 times my x. My 3 times my -5. Boop! Oh, there we go. Then once again, you want to go ahead and switch the signs and then add. Well, let's see. When I add down, that's going to drop out. Add down, that's going to drop out. I get a remainder of 0. Oh, cool. Goes in there nicely. I don't have anything left over. So my answer here can actually be written in a couple different ways. My quotient, comma, my remainder, which is 0. Sometimes when you're doing these problems, the directions will say find the quotient and the remainder. You write your answer like this. Other times it's going to say just go ahead and divide. If it says divide, well, you want your quotient, and then you go plus your remainder over your divisor. That's longhand division. Well, let's go ahead and do a slightly more challenging problem with higher exponents. You'll notice when we look at this right here, we're missing our cube, and we're missing our squared, and we're missing our x to the first power. So when we put that inside our half box, we need to go ahead and make sure all those missing terms are put in there. Then we take this and put it in front, and then we go ahead and we repeat the same type of process. We need to take a look at the x squared right here times what gives me an x to the 4th. X squared times what's x to the 4th? Well, that's an x squared. So now I got to take this x squared times all 3 of these things in front. My x squared times my x squared. My x squared times my plus 3. My x squared times my 1. Then once again, switch our signs and add down. Switch our signs and add down. We add our x to the 4th. One positive, one negative, they drop. We add our cubes. we get this. We add our squareds, we get this. Notice we had 3 terms here, so to continue on, we really need to have 3 terms here, so we bring down that next term. Boop! There we go! And we repeat. We say, okay, my x squared here times what's a negative 3x cubed, and well, that would be a negative 3. By the way, if you didn't put in these missing terms here, none of this stuff would line up with the like terms right above each other, so remember to do that. So we take this negative 3x times all 3 of these things in front, negative 3x times x squared, negative 3x times 3x, negative 3x times 1. Oh, then we got to come along and switch the signs, and then we add. You'll notice your cubes are opposites. They're going to drop. We add a negative x squared plus a 9x squared. That's an 8x squared. We take a 0x plus a 3x. So that's a 3x. Bring down the next term and repeat. So you got to think, okay, this x squared in front times what's an 8x squared? Well, that's a positive 8. Take that positive 8 times all 3 of these things in front. Positive 8 times this. And so on. Then we go ahead and switch our signs and add. Oops, sorry. There we go. There. And there we go. Add down 3x plus a negative 24x, negative 21x, negative 16 plus a negative 8, negative 24. So we've divided. So this is our quotient here. This is our remainder here. We know we're done dividing because our exponent here, highest exponent of 1, is smaller than our highest exponent of what we're dividing by. So that means we're done. So this is our remainder. That's our quotient. Cool.